Started. Okay, good evening. Today we're learning Maseches Bava Basra, Daf Kuf Yud Zayin, and we're starting at a Mishnah toward the bottom of Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Beis. This is a pretty short and clean daf, and historically also very, very interesting. We always talk about Benos Tzlafcha, that the Benos Tzlafcha, they complained to Moshe, why should it be that the Shem Avim should be lost? So they made a taina. What did they actually get out of the taina from Moshe? So this Mishnah right here articulates in full color what it is that they got as a result. Says the Gemara, Benos Tzlafchad, Natzlu Gimel Chalakim. They got 3 portions, Benachala, and the Rashbam here writes, the first Rashbam on the Mishnah, when it says Masnisin, halfway through the very fat lines, Benachalas Eretz Yisrael. They got 3 portions of land in Eretz Yisrael. What were these 3 portions? How did they come to be? Chelek Avian Shahaya im Yotze Mitzrayim. Their father was part of a group of people who lived in Mitzrayim, and he was Yotze from Mitzrayim. He wasn't Nichnas to Eretz Yisrael, but he was Yotze from Mitzrayim. We'll soon see in our Gemara a brisa that indicates a 3-way machlokas as to how the apportioning took place. Was the apportioning of the land focused on the Yotze Mitzrayim, or was it focused on the Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael? And we'll see a 3-way machlokas, even though there's only 2 opinions, most classic thing ever. We'll see exactly how this will play out. But the Benos Tzlafchad, their first chelek avian was from their father, Shahim Yotze, or Mi Yotze Mitzrayim. Okay, so that's one of the 3 portions that they got. V'chelko im echav, also Tzlafchad had a brother, and he and his brother were Yoresh from their father, Chefer. So the Benos Tzlafchad, their grandfather was Chefer. Chefer died and left over a Yerusha, but Tzlafchad was the Bechor. So then he got Pishnayim. So that means that Chefer was also a Yotze Mitzrayim and earned whatever he earned. And he gave 2 portions to his oldest son, Tzlafchad, and 1 portion to the brother. So that's what this Gemara means over here. The Mishnah, V'chelko im echa b'nichsei Chefer, Shahaya Bechor notel shnei chalakim. Those were the 3 chalakim of Benos Tzlafchad. The first of them was simply the portion of the land from Tzlafchad himself that he had earned. And the second was the Yerusha that Tzlafchad got from Chefer, 2 parts land relative to the uncle who only got 1 part land. Now, as mentioned, and as is clear in our Mishnah, that this assumes that your compensation of land was dependent on the Yotze Mitzrayim. However, Tnan, our Mishnah over here, Kiman, who is that like? It must be only the Amar the Yotze Mitzrayim Nischal Haaretz. It must be that our Mishnah is only according to the Shita and the Brisa that when we were Mechalek Eretz Yisrael, it was only done based on those who left Mitzrayim. Now, as we know, the Dor HaMidbar didn't live to make it to Eretz Yisrael, with a couple of rare exceptions. Anyone who was over 60 and who lived long enough, maybe they had to live 40 plus years to make it through the Midbar. So that means anyone 100 or older who was a Yotze Mitzrayim and a Nichnas, that's both, that's rare. And also, as we'll soon see in the Gemara, that Kalev and Yoshua, they were in the 20 and 60 range at the time, and they were Yoresh, the other Meraglim's portions, as we'll see, they were the exceptions to the rule. So right, like David pointed out, that's expressed in Chumash. So that's what the Gemara opens with on the top of Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, that the author of our Mishnah, explicitly so, as our Mishnah says, Shahaya im Yotze Mitzrayim, clearly we are of the Shita of the Yotze Mitzrayim Nischal Haaretz. Now let's see that brisa inside. That brisa is going to take up the rest of this Amud and then some, just to teach us that it's not that long, but it only feels long because the page is so short, but it's 10 lines. Okay, it's more than 10 lines. Says the Gemara 2 lines down the brisa, the Tanya. How was Eretz Yisrael Nischalka? Says the Gemara of Yoshia Omer, Liyotze Mitzrayim Nischalka Haaretz. We now already could stop right here. This is the Shita of the Tana of our Mishnah on the bottom of Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Beis, where clearly the Benos Tzlafchad got their portions from the Yotze Mitzrayim, not from the Nichnasei Aretz, but from the Yotze Mitzrayim. That's Rav Yoshia, who says, L'Yotze Mitzrayim Nischal Haaretz. What is their pasuk? What is the pasuk that supports both Rav Yoshia and the author of our Mishnah? Maybe they're one and the same person. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, this is a pasuk in Sefer Bamidbar. I'll read the whole pasuk. Ach begorol yechalek es haaretz lishmos matos avosam yinchalu. That's the whole pasuk. What's difficult about this pasuk is that it doesn't say anything about Yotzei Mitzrayim or Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael. So we're going to analyze on the Amud Beis as to where Rav Yoshia was coming from by quoting this pasuk, because granted, I am an Am Ha'aretz Doraisa when it comes to reading Chumash, but there's literally nothing in here to indicate one way or the other what this is talking about, both in regards to Yotzei Mitzrayim and in regards to Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, fine. Rav Yoshia has this pasuk. We'll figure out later how he got to his conclusion that teaches us about Yotzei Mitzrayim. What do we do about the next pasuk? This next pasuk is actually two psukim earlier. The pasuk says, "Elamani mekayim la'ela techalek haaretz benachala." Says the Gemara, based on the pasuk in Bamidbar Kavav Nun Gimel. Our previous pasuk was Nun Hey. The pasuk says, "La'ela techalek haaretz benachala b'mispar shemos." So says the Gemara, what does this pasuk teach us? That might teach me going into Eretz Yisrael. Look at the pasuk. La'ela techalek haaretz benachala. Says the Gemara, no. When the pasuk says la'ela, it means to teach ka'ela, that the apportioning of the land has to be in accordance with, what was that? And I thought about that all 4 times that I read this Gemara. So says the Gemara, what? Yeah, seriously. So the Gemara says over here. What's that?
I think of a son, I can't remember. It's like a son of a child dies, it doesn't necessarily revert back. Kind of, right?
I don't understand what you're saying. Sorry.
I was saying they're saying like they're distinguishing whether it's like the inheritance from who left Egypt to who enters.
Right, correct.
But it may be that neither happened. Like,
well, then those people don't get a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. That's possible. I'm sure that's most of the world. That's me and you too. But the people who were Yotzei, did they get a portion? Let's say someone was Yotzei Mitzrayim, but not Nichnas, which was most of the Dora Midbar 20 to 60. So did they get a portion of Eretz Yisrael? That's a machlokas tanoim. And what about someone who was both? So we have to see how they fit in. What according to Rabbi Yoshia, what would he say? Okay, they don't get it because of the Nichnas Eretz Yisrael. They only get it because of the front end. And Rabbi Yoshia would say that if someone's Nichnas Eretz Yisrael, they get nothing. So yeah, they have to check at least one box in order to even be shacked to the conversation. Anyways, what does the Gemara do with this pasuk? Says the Gemara, la'ele ka'ele, that these who left are also like ka'ele, like the ones who would have in theory earned, which is ka'ele, the ones who are 20 and older. That's what the Rashbam says over here. We don't have to look at it, but basically the Rashbam says it's for 20 and older, to remove children from the cheshbon. But no, this pasuk is still talking about Yotzei Mitzrayim. That's the count that we have in Chumash, 603,550 men between the ages of 20 and 60. All of this is Shita number 1, and either the author of our Mishnah or perfectly aligned with our Mishnah, that we are mechalek the land of Eretz Yisrael based on the Yotzei Mitzrayim as opposed to the Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael. And here's the next Shita. Rav Yonasan Omer, Levai ha'aretz nischalka. No, I disagree with you, Rav Yoshia. Rav Yonasan says the apportioning of the land of Eretz Yisrael only happened through those who stepped foot into Eretz Yisrael. So says the Gemara, that's great. But what does he do with the pasuk of Rav Yoshia? Elamani mekayim l'shemos matos. Oh, thank you very much. Rav Yonasan Omer, levai ha'aretz nischal ka'aretz shenemar le'ela techalek ha'aretz benachala. He quotes, that makes a lot more sense. He quotes pasuk nun hey, the second pasuk that we had to answer for Rav Yoshia, and he says that pasuk teaches me nischal ka'aretz that they are going to be able to, that the apportioning of the land only happened because of Eretz Yisrael, based on the pasuk of la'ela techalek ha'aretz benachala. What then was meant by the pasuk? So they were dealing with the same 2 psukim. Rav Yoshia looked at pasuk nun hey and said, perfect, it's talking about Yotzei Mitzrayim. Rav Yonasan looked at pasuk nun gimel and said, perfect, it's talking about Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael. But they have to answer for each other. So how does Rav Yonasan answer for the pasuk that Rav Yoshia thought was Iker? Says the Gemara, Mishune nachala zumi kol nachalos shebe'olam. This nachala of Eretz Yisrael, when people are nichnas to Eretz Yisrael, because that was what was the criteria for apportioning, which was entering into Eretz Yisrael, it's different than all other nachalos shebe'olam, and this is very cryptic. We'll have to see the rest of the Gemara to explain it. Shekol nachalos shebe'olam chayin yorshim mesim, that the living people inherit from the dead people. That's what we've been discussing in this parak of Yesh Nochlan up until now, right? On Shabbos, what's the pecking order of people who die, and therefore we go to daughter, we go to son, we go to daughter, we go to brother, we go to uncle. Yeah, we have a whole order. Vikan, but in this Yerusha of Eretz Yisrael, Mesim Yorshim Chaim. Dead people are Yoresh, living people. What in the world does this mean? So the Gemara says, Amar Rebbe, allow me to give you a parable as to what it is that we are talking about. 6 lines from the bottom on Kuf Yud Zayin Amar Aleph. L'shnei achin kohanim. There were 2 brothers who were kohanim. Shahayu be'ir achas. They lived in the same city. These 2 kohanim were brothers, and they both had kids. Le'echad yesh lo ben echad. Kohen A, let's call him Reuven. He had 1 son. Ve'echad yesh lo shnei banim. And Kohen B had 2. So Reuven and Shimon. Reuven has 1 kid. Shimon has 2 kids. And Reuven and Shimon are brothers. So one of them has 1, one of them has 2. And then the Kohanim went down to the granary to collect what was rightfully theirs as Kohanim, the apportioning of produce to go to Kohanim. Says the Gemara, ben echad notel chelek echad. Reuven, who has 1 child, his 1 child is going to go down there. He's going to get 1 portion. He's 1 Kohen. And then Shimon, who has 2 sons, he's going to take 2. And then what they do is they bring the 2 from Shimon's family and the 1 from Reuven's family. They bring them back up to the parent generation. So this is what happened with the granary. And then what they ended up doing is that, yes, it's true that there are 2 children for Shimon and 1 for Reuven. And yes, you would have thought that it's 1 per person. But in regards to this mashal, what's happening? Both Reuven's 1 son and Shimon's 2 sons give the 3 portions to the fathers, and the brothers, Reuven and Shimon, split equally, 1.5 to 1.5. That means that in the end of the day, 1 brother gets 1.5. He's a cousin, actually. That's Reuven's son. And the other 2 brothers split the 1.5 into 0.75s. This is exactly how it happened when it came to the Jews in Mitzrayim, the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. Once a Jew walked into Eretz Yisrael, what is your name? Karesh. What Shevet are you from? Ichves. Binyamin. Okay, Karesh, Binyamin, here you go. But then what would happen is once we'd all have all of our cards, we'd have to then compare our notes, bring it back up to the father generation, and then we would pool all of our answers and divide based on the father generation. It wasn't based on the child's generation. So this is an example, just 1 second. This is an example of Chayin Yorshim Mesim, of the younger children giving back to the dead Dor HaMidbar generation to properly apportion the land of Eretz Yisrael. Very complicated.
It's the 3rd sheet.
Third shita is on the last line. What? It's illogical if you assume that the generation of apportioning is the one that walked into Eretz Yisrael. But what the Gemara is saying with this middle shita of Rabbi Yonasan is that we're looking at the parent generation of the Jews in the Midbar, the Dor HaMidbar. They are the ones who deserve apportioning. So let's say that you have Reuven and Shimon who lived in the Dor HaMidbar. One of them had 6 kids and one of them had 8 kids. It's not 1 per kid. We take the 6 and 8 and we actually make it 7 and 7 for each family. So not every yid is getting the same portion, but every family is getting an equal number. So if there are 50 Binyamin families.
Opposed to the later generation based upon the numbers of the previous generation.
But not based upon the number of children.
If it goes up and down.
Well,
Meaning
the fact that I have 6 kids and that my brother has 3 kids doesn't matter.
Right, we're calling it Mason Yorkshire Cox. I don't know if the mechanics are the land goes to the parents.
It doesn't go to the parents.
Exactly. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
it's a math move.
It's
Yeah.
based upon the equation of the upper generation.
Correct.
Here's the
So therefore,
but
you
exactly.
might have thought, okay, I was on my A game. I have 15 children.
Right.
So great. So it says the Gemara, it's a lot of mazel tovs and good for you. And Lasheva says, all right, it's great. You did a great job. You made the world a better place. In regards to the Chaluk of Eretz Yisrael, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, I guess, because you're still dividing based on whatever. I mean, it's actually harder per person. But if you live as a family, it's still a lot of property. If you have 1 person with 15 kids, okay. So the Zayda has a lot of, even though he wasn't alive anymore, because that's Chaim Yorshin Esamesim. And then the third shita, so shita number one we saw was Rav Yoshia. Rav Yoshia said Liyotze Mitzrayim Nischalka. Shita number two is Rav Yonasan, who says Lavoye Haaretz Nischalka Haaretz. And last but not least, last line of Kuf Yud Zayin, what Aleph Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer le'elu ule'elu Nischalka Haaretz Kedei L'Kayim Shnei Mikraos Halalu. Both, says the Gemara, the real apportioning should be even if you were that Yechidei Skula, who happened to live both through the Yetzias Mitzrayim and the Knis of Eretz Yisrael, which, as we pointed out, is a very, very narrow sliver of people. Says the Gemara, HaKetzad, Haya miyotze Mitzrayim notel chelko miyotze Mitzrayim. If you only left Mitzrayim but didn't make it in, then you get one portion for your progeny. Haya miboy haaretz notel chelko im boy haaretz. If you didn't leave Mitzrayim, but you were the children of the Dor HaMidbar, so you were nichnas to Eretz Yisrael, then you get your portion there. Mikanu mikan, but if you manage to straddle both occurrences, the leaving of Mitzrayim and the entering into Eretz Yisrael, then notel chelko mikanu mikan. So basically, he's just a blend of the other shitas. I guess with a uniqueness in that Rav Yoshia really holds stark that walking into Eretz Yisrael is not how you get your apportioning. Rav Yonasan would hold stark that leaving Mitzrayim is not how you get your apportioning. And then the last one, Rav, what's his name? Rav Shimon ben Elazar held that everyone counts. What'd you say?
Decreased portion, the smaller portion, right? Like if there's, say there's like, let's even number 500 people left Egypt. Now you say, but you made it to Israel, now instead of 500 portions, you say there's like 501.
You're splitting the pot by more people. So it's
people, you're splitting the portions.
Instead of
Yeah,
600,000
so
portions, it's a million change.
it's not a million to change. Oh, you're saying, oh yeah.
It's double.
Oh, it's double. Yeah. It's more than double.
I don't know the number that went in, but.
They were 6 bekarasech. Shisha bekarasechad if the midrashim are emes.
But only 1/5 came out. So.
No, that was Doram. Oh, that was when was Shisha bekarasechad?
Right.
That was in Mitzrayim?
But only 1/5 came out.
Oh, so it's 1.5 kids. It's like the American birthing rate. Shem Yerachim. Yatsu Chamushim. They were. We talk about this a lot. Like today I did a bris. I was like, you have 6.
They think you are.
I told them, I'm like, did you meet? We got some friends, they got more kids than we do, that we're not even the weirdos on our block, I was talking about the Shermans. The Shermans, they have 11 kids, but I know. So you're right. It definitely makes all the portions a lot smaller. And here he actually has 3 buckets. He doesn't just have Yotzi Mitzrayim, which is 1 chilek. That's the whole Dor HaMidbar, 20 to 60 who left. It's not only the Knisim, the Nichnasim, which is all the children of the Dor HaMidbar, and a couple of other Yechidim, 60 and over, who made both. And then the third bucket is both. That was a small pool. Let's assume.
Is there an individual who's in charge of dividing this up?
Yeshua.
Yeshua, there's a lot of arguments they don't know. That's okay.
Jeez, I don't know, man.
It was all done by Goral, I believe.
That's what the pasuk says.
Right?
That was the pasuk we said. Ach begoral yechalek es haaretz lishmos matos avosam yinchalu.
It's all considered to. I know you come from God. I know it's still.
It's a great move by Yoshua. Like it's God. It's not. It's a great move by Hashem, actually, to say, listen, Yoshua, I know how these Jews work. You're going to roll the lottery balls. Everybody grab a lottery ball. What about the Meraglim? So Yoshua Kalev, not Lochelkam. Don't mess around. When you do things wrong, you get a slap on the wrist. Yoshua and Kalev divided 12 portions. So they each got 6 portions. 6x, they got 6 more than everybody else. Mislonin and Va'adas Korach. The 250 and the Adas Korach, lo haya lehem chelek ba'aretz at all. However, Habanim, their children, not l'bischus avi avihan, because of the grandparents, or bischus avi imosehen, they were able to still get a portion based on the grandparent generation. Meaning not the mislonanim and not the Adas Korach. The children got it bischus, not the parents, but the grandparents to get some chelek in Eretz Yisrael. Which is really, I could have seen both ways. I don't know. Just saying, you whatever. Okay, let's go back to just one last kasha, and we'll stop at these upcoming 2 dots. In regards to the shita of Rav Yoshia, we had said on the top of Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph at the open of the Brisa that the pasuk that he used to teach us that the chalukah of Eretz Yisrael was based on Yotzei Mitzrayim and not based on Boy Haaretz. So he quoted a pasuk, and that's what the Gemara wants to know. My mashma, from where did Rav Yoshia know that this pasuk, the pasuk that says l'shmos matos avosim b'yotzei mitzrayim ksiv? How do we know that that pasuk was talking about yotzei mitzrayim? Dilma l'shvatim ka'amarla. Maybe it was talking about something else. Maybe it was just talking about the shvatim. It was talking about being in Eretz Yisrael, not about the Yerusha at all. Says the Gemara, because the pasuk says, "V'nasati osalachem morashani Hashem." This pasuk is in Shemos, unrelated to the sugyas in the psukim in Bamidbar. And here, this is a longer pasuk. Let's read it. The pasuk reads, "V'hevesi eschem el haaretz asher nasasi es yadi." I'm going to bring you to the land. That already sounds much more like a laboy haaretz land. Let's say so. I'm going to give it to you. Morashani Hashem. And the drush of the Gemara is Yerusha hilachem me'avosechem. That's a Yerusha. Where did you get it from? You got it from the people who were before you. Who were the people before the Boy Eretz Yisrael? Liyotze Mitzrayim, Kamarlu, Pashat that based on the pasuk from Shemos. So basically, Rav Yoshia learned the pasuk in Bamidbar Chavav Nunhei, but he learned it in concert with the pasuk of Shemos Vav Ches, which is Morasha and V'nasati osa lachem Morasha, that it's a Yerusha. So that means that for the Boy Eretz Yisrael, they got a Yerusha. Where did they get it from? From the previous door. Who was the previous door? Those were the Yotzei Eretz Mitzrayim. And that's how Rav Yoshia drew this initial pasuk that we started with in the Brisa of L'shmos Matos Avosim Yinchalu, that it was in fact talking about the Boy of the Yotzei Mitzrayim, and that's how we got to Shita. And of course, just going back full circle, that was therefore the sheet of our Mishnah, because our Mishnah was of the opinion that the Benos Tzlafchad got Gimel Chalakim because their father Tzlafchad was a Yotzei Mitzrayim. We'll stop right here. Amir Hashem will pick up tomorrow night at the 2 dots, 5 lines from the bottom of Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. Wishing you all a beautiful night and a good moed.